Hi everybody, welcome back to another 21 and Sensory episode with me, Emily. On today's episode I have special guest Aoife Dooley. Aoife is an award-winning illustrator, author and comedian from Dublin, Ireland. Aoife is known for her Your One Nikita series, which chronicles the life of a 22-year-old woman called Nikita. She published her first book, How to Be Massive, in October 2016, and her second in 2017 called How to Deal With Poxes. She published her first children's book in 2019 called 123 Island, and in 2020, Scholastic UK acquired world rights to Frankie's World, which is a graphic novel based on Aoife's real-life experiences of autism. The book was published in January 2022, and her second board book, ABC Island, was released on March 2022. So it's obviously been a very busy time for Aoife, which I'm going to ask her a little bit about. Aoife also has experience with both live TV and radio and has performed at festivals such as Vodafone Comedy Festival, Body and Soul, Electric Picnic, and many more. In 2017, she won You Magazine's 30 Under 30 award for Best Comedian. So yeah, we're going to have so much to chat about, hopefully. So Aoife, would you like to say hello?
Hi, thanks for having me on, Emily. I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh,
I don't think I've actually done a podcast around autism before and just like around talking about these subjects. So I'm like really excited to do it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I'm so glad that you wanted to come on. And I feel like we kind of have some sort of like shared things in common. Obviously, you're an illustrator, so am I, and we're both autistic. And I was like, I'd really love to have you on and just kind of talk more about you and obviously your kind of style as well as your career. So hopefully we're going to have a lot to chat about. Yeah, so I think usually what I do is we kind of start with a bit about you and your background, and it'd be interesting to know more about your autism diagnosis because I know it was a late diagnosis in your life. So yeah, would you like to chat a little bit about that maybe?
Yeah, so basically I'm Aoife. I'm an illustrator, author, comedian. I'd like to try something new every year. Whether I stick with it now or not is another thing. But my main thing is illustration though, and writing books. And really, yeah, I got my diagnosis at 27. So it kind of, yeah, it's mad to look back and think that like for 27 years, I didn't know that I was autistic. But I knew the things that I was good at though, and I was always good at drawing. And that was probably the only thing that I was good at in school. So for me, that was something that I stuck with. And it was only after someone said something interesting to me when I found out. They said, what was it? They said the drawing is kind of like a form of stimming. And I was like, yeah, I suppose it is. And it made me think back to when the times that I would have been drawn in my room. And it made a lot of sense to me then thinking back. I thought that was really interesting. But I kind of, yeah, I don't know where to start because there's so much involved in this. So let me think. Where would be the best place to start, I suppose? Because that's like a little intro to to kind of myself. But I don't know exactly where to start because I do jump around a lot and I don't want the listeners to be like, hey, where's this going? Like this, oh, we were here a minute ago and now we're all the way over here. So I think, yeah. So it's been about, I forget what age I am now because of the pandemic. I keep saying I'm 2 years younger than I actually am, but I'm 21 now. So yeah, I had went through college studying graphic design, and then I went on to get my degree. I'd done a diploma and a degree, and it was only really after a few years after college that I got my diagnosis. So I'd went through school, college, the lot really, the works. I'd done internships, and that was kind of really difficult at the time because there were certain things I felt like I couldn't really do, or I couldn't keep up with certain things. But I had the pressure of like my family and other people kind of saying, well, you need to do this because this, and this. And I just never really kind of took account of how I felt during all this and what I thought. I always kind of took on what everyone else thought that I should be doing and this kind of thing. So it was really nice to find out a couple of years ago to make sense of why I had certain struggles and why I felt the way I did, you know, that kind of way. It was a big relief, but I think it's taken me a couple of years to really be able to realize who I am, if that makes sense. So it's kind of funny looking back because even before the pandemic, I feel like a completely different person after. And I think that's due to, again, my diagnosis and also finding the right counsellor, because I think counselling was a big thing for me as well. I really needed to find someone right to talk to. And that's a thing that I think I haven't heard too many people talking about it, but I'm sure, like, you know, there's a lot of people in similar situation when sometimes you go to a therapy and the therapist, you're just not a right fit, or it just doesn't seem to be working for you. And I suppose when you don't really know how that works, you kind of stay with it a long time because you're not really sure of these things. So it took me a while to find the right person, because I think I had a bad run with therapy. I remember the first time I went to someone, they just kept crying. And I was like, but this is my session, not yours. I was like, that was really hard. And I just thought that was normal because I'd never been before. The second person I went to, and these were all really well-meaning people, it wasn't helping me, do you know, that kind of way. And the second person I went to as well was lovely, but they kind of didn't know the full scope of certain situations, and obviously either did I at the time, because I didn't know I was autistic. So I feel like a lot of advice that I took probably shouldn't have been taken so literally at the time. Okay. And then other stuff like as well, like giving me candles and stuff at Christmas. Nice gift, but like I'm not going for a gift, you know, that kind of way. So it's kind of it took me a long time to find the right person. And that's something I definitely would say for anyone who is listening and they're thinking about therapy. It's okay to kind of try and find the right person for you. And that's something that definitely helped me, because I felt before I was kind of just going through the motions. I felt good going in to talk to someone and getting everything all out, but then nothing was ever solved. I didn't kind of think about how I could manage things and for myself, do you know, that kind of way. So that's a big change I'm after noticing now in the last couple of years. I think since my diagnosis, which is it wouldn't have happened only for my diagnosis. So it's kind of had an effect in that way. It's kind of like a domino effect. It's kind of helped me kind of get to the stage where I'm at now, basically.
Mm-hmm. And what was there, like a single kind of moment that spurred you to get a diagnosis, or like did someone say something? Usually that kind of thing is what I hear a lot, is someone said, oh, you might be autistic, and that leads people to it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really funny because I knew for years there was something, but I just didn't know what it was. And I'm a very kind of what would be the word? I like to spend a lot of time on my own. Like I'd like to play like games, like video games. I like to like draw and just do my work. I have like a very small set of friends. Like, you know, I don't have a big friend group. So I never really thought about autism because there was only one kid on my road, and I knew that he was autistic, and he was much younger than me, so I didn't really know him. But that's all I knew autism was. And this kid was completely different to me, so it just never kind of crossed my mind that I could be autistic. And it was only for a friend of mine came over, and this friend, very similar to me, likes to try something new every year. He was in like the screen printing business. He had his own record label. He was studying to become a lawyer. Like this guy, like literally, he's a machine. Once he puts his mind to something, he'll do it. He'll achieve it. And I have a lot of respect for people like that who will try different things and will work hard at them, because I feel like that's what I've done with my career. And I just thought we'd be a good fit together to work on a magazine that I was thinking of doing at the time. And he came over, and this magazine never happened, by the way, because something much bigger came from this conversation. He came over and we were chatting, and he was more of an acquaintance. I'd met him through a friend years ago, and we didn't talk very all that often, but I knew that he had been diagnosed recently, but again didn't think anything of it. And we were chatting, and he just started saying to me, you know, the way you do this and the way you said this and this and that, like, I do that as well. And we were just chatting, and everything that we were talking about, I was like, I do that too. What? Like, that's okay. No, what are you talking about? And he turned around to me then, and he was like, I think you could be on the spectrum. I think you could be like me. And I was like, what? I was like, I think I'd know. Like, I'm 27 years old. Like, I think I know by now. But little did I know about women on the spectrum, and that like that is a completely common thing. So I was really shocked looking into it, and but at the same time I wasn't surprised, because I always felt like there was something. But I was really shocked in the sense that I was watching other people talking about their own experiences and how it just was like almost like a mirror image of my own life in some instances, like when people were talking about school and work and holding down jobs and all these things that I really struggled with, like, and it just kind of, I know loads of people say this, but it really did feel like a light bulb moment just went off, and I was like, okay, I better kind of look into this, because I feel like this is something that kind of I feel like this is just too close. There's too many things here that make sense of my life, so I just got to sit on it for a while and just kind of look into it a bit more and then see what happens. So I it was initially, my friend saying it to me that spurred me on to look into it more and to eventually go and get an assessment. Then it was only for that friend said it to me, I may never have known, because of my small circle of friends. So it was really, really strange, because it made me realize, my dad, because I only met my dad in 2015 for the first time. Never met him before, and he was living in the UK. He's from the UK, and I went over to visit him, and I was like, I remember this before I knew I was autistic, by the way. This is like maybe a year or two, but I'd visited him in 2015, and I found out in 2018, I think, that I got my diagnosis then. And I only kind of like started to kind of like put two and two together afterwards, after I got my own diagnosis, and I was like, my dad is definitely autistic, like 100%. And
really?
it just, absolutely. And I talked to my auntie about it, and she was like, like that would make sense. And she was talking to me about it then. And so that was kind of, it kind of made sense of so much, like, if that makes like, it wasn't just like one thing, it was like loads of different things that helped me to kind of understand, and also to kind of, make up my own mind about things. I've been told my whole life to do things a certain way because people didn't understand why I worked a certain way or why this. And I think that has been only from my friends saying it to me, like, I was so stressed all the time. I don't think I'm as stressed now, because I have the voice to do that now, and I can go, right, well, this is the way I work. I'm more comfortable working like that. And I suppose in a way it's kind of like taking the mask off, isn't it? Like that's what it is. So that was Sorry, I talk so much.
No,
I'm probably
no.
talking.
That's what I want on a podcast. It's great.
Grand, just making sure. But it was honestly like, if my friend hadn't have said it, I wouldn't know. So it's I really thank him for that, because it was it was really random how it happened, and it so nearly could never have happened at the same time, if that makes sense, because as I said, it's not very often that we'd see each other. So I think I was just delighted, I think, at the time to find out and to finally understand, and to just for like my partner and my family as well, for them to understand. I thought that was really nice as well. Of course, not everybody understands, but not everybody is going to, I suppose. And I think that's something that like a lot of other people would deal with as well after getting a diagnosis. I think that's quite a common thing as well. But I think I just learned that it doesn't really make a difference once I know who I am, and I've got, it's changed my life in a way. So that's kind of the main thing for me. I don't really care what anyone else thinks, or if they think that, that way. So that's a big change, because I think I always used to care about what people thought. So that's a massive change in the last couple of years, I'd say.
I mean, it's really interesting to hear that, like, it feels like it was a nice way to find out, in that you were kind of like friend to friend kind of thing, rather than being told you was something. Someone alike was like, I think we might be the same. Like, that sounds like quite a nice, like a nicer way of being told potentially. But how did you find the actual kind of like diagnostic process? Did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you go like privately? Did you have to wait kind of long? Like, how did you find the actual kind of assessment side of things?
So in Ireland, you can't actually go through the HSE, which would be like the equivalent of your NHS. You can't go through it that way. I'm not sure if it's the same in the UK, but unfortunately, you can't go that way. It has to be private. So there was a bit of research there then that I had to do, because I didn't want to go, like, I obviously, knowing that I'm a woman, I wanted to go to someone who didn't just diagnose boys. I wanted someone who like had like studied women, and they knew, like, they had their research done, they had their, all their qualifications. I just wanted to make sure, because A lot of people told me as well at the time, or not a lot of people, maybe one or two people, they said it was really important to make sure that the assessor was recognized by the HSE, meaning that, like, you know, they were kind of making sure that they were qualified, because if not, what happens a lot to people is they go and get an assessment and they get a sheet of paper and it means nothing because it's not recognized by the HSE. So
Okay.
there was a lot of that kind of stuff that I really wanted to look into as well, because yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was going about it the right way. And of course it's very expensive as well. It's not cheap. So I had to save up a bit of money as well before. But my experience, I thought it was a very positive experience, because I was talking to I think it was another I think it was another autistic person online. I was on Twitter. I didn't know them. They had suggested someone that they had went to, and they said that she comes to your house, and I was like, oh well, that sounds nice, because new
Yeah.
places, then having to get a train or a bus somewhere and then going to do that. Like, I wanted to be my most comfortable, so people could see me the way that I usually am. So I thought
Yeah.
that was the best. I thought that was the best way. So I filled out a form. That was kind of difficult because I was asking questions about like parents and stuff like that. And both my parents had passed away. So my mom in 2013 and then my dad in 2017. And my stepfather, like, is not really kind of in my life. So I couldn't really ask him. And if I did, he'd be like, oh, your mom knew all about that. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I kind of had to, and it's great though, because I have such a good long-term memory. My short-term memory is terrible now, but my long-term memory is really good, that I was able to remember how I was in school, like, and just really early memories of how I behaved in school, what it was like. And I was able to give them a really detailed just description of my life and what I had gone through, my struggles, things that I excelled at, things I didn't. I kind of just went all out and done it all. And it was about, I think it was after a month, which was quite quick. I was really surprised, because I heard that it can take years, like, so I was really appreciative that it was only a month after. And that was really nice, because they came out, it was like the assessor, and is it a psychologist or a psychiatrist? I always get those two mixed up, one or the other.
Yeah. It's tricky to know sometimes.
Yeah, one or the other. So there's two people there, two women. And the assessment itself though was kind of funny. I was not
Okay.
expecting that at all, what the assessment is actually like. I don't know if you'd want me to talk about that, like, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I found it really weird. Like, it was
Okay.
really calm. Like, I felt comfortable. What I was being asked to do, I thought was a bit ridiculous, if I'm being quite honest with you. To play with toys on a table, I felt quite embarrassed. I didn't really know how
Oh,
to. Yeah,
okay.
this kind of stuff. I don't know if it's the same in the UK. Do you have that frog book where you have to look at
I have
floating frogs?
heard of people who have had to do that. I didn't have any kind of childlike things like that in my assessment, so it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah. So the bag of toys was interesting. It was like a plastic bag. And I remember there was a tiny, teeny, tiny playing card in it, like, like a deck of cards.
Okay.
There was a car, like a little toy car, and something else. And they were like, they said something like, how would you play with them or something? And I was like, I'm a
You're
27-year-old
27.
woman. I'm not gonna, like, I'm sorry, like, can I curse like here right now? But like, in my
Yeah.
mind, I was like, I'm a 27-year-old woman. Like, I'm not gonna be fucking playing with toys. Like, why you ask me to do this? And I was
Okay.
kind of like, okay. And I just remember just being like, what is this? And the frog thing was crazy as well. It was a book with no words in it, which sounds, like, just like kind of like a picture book, maybe, with like,
Yeah.
with no words. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you're going to tell us the story, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. This sounds right up my alley, because, I'm a creative person. This would be easy. And they opened up the book, and it's like all these frogs floating on lily pads through people's laundry, hanging on their washing line and floating into a house. And I was just like, is this an assessment or some kind of acid trip? Like, what is going on right now? I remember just thinking that it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And I had talked to so many other people who had been assessed this way, but obviously they're looking out for things that we've no idea what they're looking out for. There's things that they would have been trained on to look out for, like, that we would have no idea. So I found that really interesting, but also quite kind of embarrassing. I think maybe that's something that could potentially change for adults, perhaps. Maybe there's a better way of doing it, like because seems maybe slightly dated. Although I'm not, working in that industry, so I have no idea. It just seemed really odd at the time.
It really was,
yeah. But I went with it anyway, just because that's what I had to do. And that was kind of interesting because it was nothing like I expected it to be, especially filling out the form and stuff like that. It was kind of, you'd think it'd be more talking and then kind of in that way. But well, it was completely different to what I expected. So that was a surprise. But overall, though, I found it kind of, it was nice. It was relaxing in a sense that I felt like I could be myself. Because I felt like, okay, I've never, this is something that I've struggled with, I think, a long time. And now I have the opportunity to see what's going on. So I felt kind of, it was a month, so I felt really comfortable by the stage that they actually got there then. And I think for me, it was probably about another month after I found, no, it wasn't a month after, it was a couple of weeks after I found out. And that was just a big relief. But I think already at that stage, I kind of already knew. I already knew, like, I would have been shocked if I wasn't. Do you know that way?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a surprise when I found out, really, but it was more of a relief, I think. And kind of, I find that the initial relief that you get is really nice, but it can be short-lived as well, because I find if you speak out after you get a diagnosis, people think that you're an expert on it and know everything and know, well, you need to do this next, or how can you do this, or where, like, people ask you a lot of things about like what you're talking about. And for me, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to people messaging me, asking me for help and where they could go and all these things. And I became almost like an ally for other autistic people in a way, when I hadn't put myself out there to do that. And I found that quite stressful at the time, because I hadn't had the time to assess it for myself. And I think this happens to a lot of autistic people when they first get a diagnosis, especially late in life. They feel like they have to talk about it. And I felt like I did need to talk about it, because I was like, I'm 27 years old and I didn't know this. Like, people need to know, like, what if there's other people? And there was, because the more I talked about it, then the more people kept messaging me saying, if you didn't talk about this, I wouldn't know. So I felt like almost like I had to do it, because it just felt like the right thing to do. But I think over the space of the pandemic, I really kind of took a break from social media. I was writing my books and stuff. I was quite busy anyway, but I think taking a break from social media and reassessing, and also for myself, I was not in the right mind frame to be helping anyone back then. I just lost my dad, my mom found out that I was autistic. I was going through like grief. I had so much going on that I just was not ready. So I think I really need to work on myself first before I was going to help other people as well in that way. So it kind of, I think that's something that wouldn't have maybe happened had the pandemic not happened, if that makes sense. I probably would have continued. I would have burnt myself out, like, because I'm one of those people that if someone messaged me, I'll always try to message back. I won't leave it, that kind of way. And some people were like, what are you doing to yourself? And I go, I know, but like, it's I know, because I've been there. I've been on both sides. I've been on the side where I knew nothing about autism, and I've been on the side where I've educated myself, and I'm learning, and I'm always learning. I don't know everything about autism. And I think some people assume that you do. So I think it's kind of like reframing that. And it's like, well, I'm going to talk about my own experiences. And if that helps you, that's great. Like, that way. And that's the way I kind of would do it now. And that's what I've done in my books as well, like with Frankie's World. Like, so I've shared my own experiences through Frankie as a character, and things that I would have experienced in primary school, and as an 11-year-old girl at the time. Like, so I think that's I like kind of doing it that way. But I think for me, I find it very hard to kind of get my points across and stuff if I'm talking very politically about something. So I often don't go too far into it, you know. But I do feel like there is a pressure there when you find out sometimes, and everyone wants you to talk about it. And for anyone listening, I suppose, who is just being diagnosed, I suppose I just want to say, you're under no obligation to do that. Like, take the time to process it for yourself, because you've just went like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades without knowing. That's a lot of years without knowing, and you need to kind of, you know, take care of yourself. Like, that's the, you know what I mean? I think it's easy to lose sight of that, like when you want to help other people as well, do you know that way? So that's,
I think it's tricky as well, because you find out on the day or like a few weeks afterwards potentially that you're autistic, and you tell people and they think you're autistic from that point onwards, whereas actually you've been autistic your entire life. And you're like, I have all this lived experience, but because I've only just been told, people think it's from like now onwards kind of thing, which I found quite tricky. And I think you come out of your assessment thinking the world is going to change because you know this about yourself, and it doesn't, and it's really frustrating. I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the changes that you initially see are kind of, they're not even changes. It's more like a grieving process. So you kind of look back on the things that you would have went through, and you're like, oh, that happened because of this. And oh, this makes sense because of this. And it makes sense of like everything. I think that's the first thing that I would have like really experienced at the start. And that was heavy, because like you're almost like grieving for your younger self in a way, like, and in a way that you weren't able to before, because you didn't know what was going on. But I do understand that I have had a few people since I got my diagnosis, even if I'm talking about, like, I love talking about design and illustration, and you might find this interesting too, but like the illustration and designs that surround autism aren't made by us. They're made by people who aren't autistic. And I remember talking about this one day in my stories, and how visuals can be a key representation, and basically like in helping people find out maybe that they're autistic if it's aimed towards certain people, age groups, and this kind of thing. And I was saying, like, if you know, the jigsaw puzzle, for example, like that does nothing. It doesn't make me look at that and go, oh, that's me. Do you know, that kind of way? And this is all I was talking about. And someone came on, they're like, well, what would you know? You're only autistic a wet minute. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, no, I didn't just like wake up and like, you know, I'm autistic today. Now that's it. Like, you know, you know, and there was a lot of that. And there was a lot of people, there was an article that I had, I'd done an interview with someone in a newspaper shortly after I found out, because I was like, right, I'll, you know, write something about this, because it's, you know, it's important. And so many people on Reddit, on like, it was like an Ireland subreddit, so it was like the subreddit of my own country, like literally. It was awful. Like, people were saying, oh, I bet she's going to use this to buy her own house. I was like, not buy, no, actually it was complete opposite. I bet you she's going to use this so she can get a house off the government and all this. Oh, you know, everyone's a bit of something these days, but like there were some really nasty ones there, and I was kind of, oh, I bet you she's going to get a few sympathy exhibitions in a gallery now because she's autistic. And that, I'm gonna be honest, that really pissed me off. It really pissed me off when I seen it. It really upset me when I seen it, because I was like, I didn't do any of this for any of you. I'd done this for myself. And it was just the sheer ignorance from people that I just couldn't believe, but at the same time I could. But I was just, it just made me feel sick. And it made me feel sick because I've worked harder than anyone I know. And I know that's a real kind of up your arse thing to say, but it's true. Like, I've worked so hard. Like, I literally lost both my parents, and I'm renting an apartment in the city centre in town now. But like, I didn't just get anything handed to me. I came from nothing. Like, we were literally taking money out of the troker boxes I get in school for food for ourselves. Like, literally, like, that's just the way it was in my house. So when I seen those comments of like, oh, she's going to look for this now, she's going to look for that, never look for anything in my life. Never look at it. Even if I did, like, what is it to you? What, do you know, that kind of way? Like, it was just like, also just the kind of that the negativity of it. If someone does receive a diagnosis and want to get help, it's bad that they look for it, like kind of that kind of vibe. And I just it was just, there's a lot of people out there like that who think that though, don't they? And it's just ignorance at the end of the day. And it's taken me a couple of years to kind of just let it go, like by me now, and ignore it, because it's so easy to get triggered by people commenting stuff like that, because it is just like nasty when there's no need to be. So that was kind of interesting. It really kind of gave me insight to what people are like, and it also was really interesting because I was being viewed in a different way that I hadn't been perceived before, and it was kind of, that was new to me as well. So it was kind of, it took me a while to get used to that. And there was also times when if I was being harassed online or anything by anybody, there'd be people like literally writing. If I was trying to, there was one situation where I'm not getting into this because it is a whole other story, but someone harassed me for a year online. It was a whole thing.
A year.
A year, yeah. And but I actually ended up finding out who it was through linguistic analysis, and figured out it was the one person writing to me the whole time, and never heard from them again, which was great. So fair warning to anyone else who tries to do the same.
Yeah.
only messing. But it was like like I seen people talk, because I went on, I was talking about it on my stories then obviously, but I seen people talking about it, and they'd say things like, well, should we really take her word for it, because like she's autistic and she sees things different way, and all these kind of things. Like, it's like, right. I really got to see what people thought of people who were autistic, and the way people's perceptions changed around me and changed when people were talking to me. Like, not everybody, but certain people, definitely, I noticed there were people who talked slower to me, for example, and I was just like, are you okay? Because I don't know why you're talking so slow, but you could probably speed it up, because we're probably going to be here till the end of the day if you don't finish your sentence, like, so. Yeah. And not that I'd be rude back to people, I'd be thinking this in my head, but like I think there is kind of that kind of it's a mixture of ignorance, and I think, and sometimes people mean well and they just don't know. It's a mixture of both, I think. And
I don't understand how people can comment having read an article for maybe 3 minutes and think they know your life. Like, they're never going to know you and your background and everything you've been through, kind of thing. Absolutely. I do not understand that.
I think it's just when you put yourself in the limelight, which I don't think I ever really did. Or just my illustrations picked up online, and that's how I kind of where I'm at today. Like, and but I think there's that kind of what would the word be? It's like a negativity around people when they're happy, or when they're doing something and they're happy in what they're doing. I don't know if it's a UK thing as well, but it's definitely a very Irish thing, like a begrudgery thing. And I think it just comes more so from that than anything else. I don't think it's always personal. So that's why I've learned to take it with a pinch of salt as well, because I think that there's generally so much of it online that you have to nowadays, I think. So it's yeah.
God, that sounds tricky. And obviously you mentioned about Frankie's World and like your illustrations picking up. How did that kind of all kick off? Did you sort of decide to start sharing your stuff online, and that kind of is where it grew from, kind of thing, or how did it?
I had done the Nikita books, so they were the first ones I'd done, and that was just after college. And at that time, I very much felt like I was masking. I was just doing anything I could to survive, to be dead honest with you. Looking back now, I can understand how, like, and that was a really crazy time as well, because I met my dad and all these kind of things. And then it was only 2020 then, like, just literally as we went into all the madness, I had been kind of thinking about writing a graphic novel around a character who's autistic. And it's something that I wanted to do for a good while. I talked about it at the On Post Book Awards when they were doing a little video thing. I was like, that's something I'd like to do. And it was about a couple of months after that then, I went into negotiations, and basically I just started to kind of like plan around it then, and plan my year or two. And that's kind of how that happened. But it kind of really didn't sink in until I was actually writing about those experiences, because I just got my diagnosis in 2018, and then I'm writing this book in 2020. So it was really crucial to me to go to counselling before I started that book. And that was honestly the best thing I'd done, because a lot of people, I would have like been an illustrator first and foremost, and then I would have gone into writing. I always wrote stories when I was a kid, but like it was kind of always half and half. But illustration was I find my stronger side, because I could draw in my sleep, do you know that way? But writing takes a bit more focus. So with the focus as well, I felt like when I had to delve back into parts of my past and what school was like, it was quite traumatic, because I hadn't actually assessed any of this. I was an adult as far as I was aware, and I didn't need to, because that was when I was a kid. I didn't need to kind of go back and look over that stuff, because it was gone. It's over and done with. Like, yeah, it still hurts, some of the stuff, but like I don't need to go through that now. Like, and yes, I did because if I hadn't of, I wouldn't have been able to write that book, because there were some parts in it that were so hard to write. I don't know how they are to read, but like the scene when I was talking about Frankie's mom, for example. So my mom would have had heart condition as well, and would have been very sick when I was growing up. So that was hard to talk about, and certain parts for the bullying. So I felt like the counselling really helped me to basically work through that, but also process it. And I was able to write about these things then, and it kind of, in a way, helped me to let go. And that was really something that I never thought would happen from writing a book. And I feel cheesy saying that it changed my life writing that book, but it really did. I feel like I'm in a completely different place, and just seeing Frankie go through her experience allowed me to view myself with some empathy. Whereas if I seen someone going through a similar thing to me, I'd be very upset for them. I'd be devastated for that child, but I could never be devastated for myself, because I had this wall up where I was like, no, I'm protecting myself. That's not me. That didn't happen to me. So I really had to face those things when I was doing it. So it all happened very fast. So it was kind of, there was, and then obviously with the pandemic as well, that was very stressful. I was very stressful trying to do all that during it. It was not the best time, I don't think, but I was really happy. I think when I got to the certain stage when I just felt, I knew when I got to a certain stage when I had processed certain things, and I was like, I felt so much better. And yeah, I don't think that would have happened either if I hadn't have wrote a book. And I feel it was the right time for me as well. And it was really interesting actually, because around the same time, literally, I think probably the day, it was either the day or the week I got the deal, the book deal. My auntie called me from the UK, and she was saying, oh, you have a cousin. And I'm like, what? And so remember I was telling you I went to meet my biological dad. He had a brother as well who passed away. I think it probably was the early 90s. And so I never got to meet him now. But my auntie, I met her, and she was saying that her brother apparently had a child before he passed away, and they never knew about him. And his name was Frankie. And that just blew my mind, because we had the name of the book and everything. It blew my mind. And he was looking for his dad.
What?
I just thought that that was crazy.
Yeah.
Kind of just felt like everything surrounding that book and just that moment, like it really felt like a very special time. Not to sound cheesy, or it just was a really kind of, I could feel that kind of magic around it, and kind of it felt like, really, no, this is something that I should have done a long time ago, or I've wanted to do for a long time, and now I'm finally doing it. But it was it was just, I can't describe it in words, but I think writing it, thinking about writing something and having an idea about doing it, and then actually doing it, two completely different things, I think. But two completely different experiences too, that I'm really happy that came together in one, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it must be like, obviously it did so much for you writing this, but obviously it's doing so much for so many other people reading it as well. Like, is it interesting to see the response? Because, for you it's been quite a like cathartic process getting this all down, but it's really helping other people at the same time. How is that?
That's the main side of it. Like, that's it. Besides, after helping me, I think it's it is helping a lot of people, and I'm noticing a lot of adults reading the book too, which I think is really cool. And they're loving it as well, but particularly kids. And what I'm hearing a lot is that a lot of kids who don't like reading are picking up the book and they're reading it in one go. And I think that's amazing, because I definitely would have been one of those kids who would never have picked up a book unless it was put in front of me and unless it had pictures in it. So I wanted to do something that had that kind of representation in it, because I remember when I was a kid looking at any books that I was reading, I could never see myself in it. There was never a character like me that I could be like, hey, that's me, and that's, oh, they're exactly like, there was never. And I feel like that's kind of what maybe some kids are seeing in the book. They're seeing themselves in Frankie, and it's enticing them to read more, or maybe it's the illustrations and just the colors. I've no idea, but it just, I'm hearing that quite a bit as well, and I think that's really nice. And I'm seeing kids drawing pictures from the book as well, which is amazing. It just feels like such a surreal feeling that I don't think I've caught up with yet, if that makes sense. It's very much happening in the present right now. So it's kind of like, I think in like probably another couple of months, I'll look back and I'll be like, yeah, that really did kind of get into, I was only talking at an event over the weekend, and I was talking about a book that I got handed in my partner's house, my partner's family's house. His mom and dad were there, and his brother gave me a book to sign from his neighbor's neighbor or something. Like, he didn't know who they were, but they somehow found out that we were related, and I don't know how.
Excellent.
And when they gave me the book, it was the crustiest looking book I'd ever seen in my life. This book looked like an old school book that had been handed down about 5 times, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Whoever read, and it had drawings in the book, like someone, this was their book. And I was like, that was very special, because I could just tell it was well read, and they were obviously looking, like, you could just tell by the pages, and that was a really nice feeling. But I never thought that I'd feel that way about seeing something like that, because I'd never experienced anything like that before, because all my other books are kind of hardback and stuff, so this is a paperback book. So to see it in that condition will probably horrify some people who like to keep their books clean. I'm not gonna lie. Me being one of those people, but on the other side of it, it was just like, no, this book is just so well read. This is amazing. So I was like, yeah, there's definitely been some really lovely experiences like that people have shared, and I love seeing these things, because it really kind of that's what I've done it for. So it's kind of, do you know what I mean, to see that it's actually helping some kids, and that people are like making their own graphic novels from it and stuff like that. I think that's yeah, I couldn't ask for any more, really. That's the best thing. And just the support from the UK as well, I have to say, really shocked me too. I was not expecting because I suppose Ireland's so small, and I'd know not most people, it's a bit of a silly thing to say, there's a couple million people in Ireland, but you know what I mean, it's like everyone does kind of know everyone to a certain extent, especially if you're like, in the media and stuff like that, because Ireland isn't really that big. But the support I got from the UK, I didn't really know anyone over there, so that's been so lovely as well, just to hear from schools, and to do talks, and just even to read reviews that kids have done on the books as well. Like, it's just that really made my heart jump in a good way. Like, because it just, like, nobody owes me anything over there, nobody knows me, so it was kind of like, it felt like a real kind of authentic no, I really enjoyed this book. Like, I don't, no one has to say that unless they actually did enjoy it. So that kind of, that was lovely. Like, that really gave me such a confidence boost, because I was doing something completely new. I'd never done a graphic novel before, so I was kind of really going out into the world, kind of like, oh God, what way is this going to go? What way are people going to think? Are people going to like it? I was so nervous, like, before the book just came out, because it was so close to my heart, So that was lovely. That was lovely to experience that now early on, and just even it was really nice now, I have to say.
And what I kind of want to talk a little bit more about your kind of like the illustration side of things. Obviously, I know you illustrated and wrote it, which in itself is a huge like feat to both write and illustrate. But do you feel like you've kind of really come across like your own kind of illustration style? I feel like whenever I see your work, I know it's you, because it's just a very like defined sort of like like stylized sort of illustration. And I don't know, is that something you've kind of like grown into, do you think? Like, have you had to find your style as an illustrator?
I think so, yeah. I do think that it takes a while, because I think when you're in college, although when you're in your final year, I don't know what way it kind of works, but over here, basically, you do get leeway to kind of do what you want. So for my final year, I got to design a children's book, and that was really cool. But I had already been in college for 6 years at that stage, so my end of year projects were, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But I find if you just go straight in to do a degree, by the time you get to the end of college, you've had like 4 years maybe. I don't think that's enough time to really gather all the knowledge about how programs work, and to find your style. Because if it was that easy, sure, everybody would do it. So I think it's one of those things where you go through a process, but you don't even realize you're going through a process. And everyone goes through that stage where they're like, oh, I just want people to look at my illustrations and go, I know that's your work. Because sometimes at the start, your work just looks like it can look like a load of shite, like at the start, because you don't know like what direction you're going to go in.
Yeah.
And it does take a bit of time. And I only really feel now, and I've been, it's funny, I was only thinking about this yesterday, and geez, I nearly fell off my chair. I was like, oh my God, next year is 10 years and I'll be working freelance 10 years.
Oh,
and
really?
I only really feel, yes, 10 years. And I was just like, how am I, what? That doesn't make any sense. And it's taken me probably about, I'd say 7 of those years, maybe even 8 of those years, to really get to a stage where I'm like, no, this is how I draw. This is like, and even still at this stage, there's things that I don't like about my work. And I think we're constantly progressing and changing. And I do that a lot as well. Like I have particular colors that I'll work with now. And it took me a long time to find the colors that I really like to work with and that best show my illustrations. Like I think it's one of those things that you have to really experiment with. And it takes a while. It definitely took me a while. Maybe it's not the same for everyone, but that was my experience now. It took me a while to kind of get into the zone and really kind of, figure out like what I wanted to do and what my style was. And I think you just kind of, it's not really like one day you're like, aha, this is it.
Yeah.
And I've got my style now. This is amazing. I'm sorted for life. It's kind of like you just randomly can kind of come across, like you're working and you'll have an idea and you're like, oh, and you draw it a certain way, and then you continue to draw things in that way for a while then, but that can change. I think it's always ever changing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like even looking at like the line drawings from Your One Nikita to the line drawings I've done for Frankie. They're not the same, but they're not completely different in the sense that I think the drawings that I've done for Frankie's World, and because it's a graphic novel as well, and there's so much more illustration in it, I think I progressed a lot while doing that book, because I had never worked on something so big before. So you can see a clear difference between the illustrations in my first book to my last book. And my first book came out in 2016. So it can be, and it really is there's no really easy way to kind of find a style or go about it. It's like, yeah, you do have to unfortunately go the long way, I think, because otherwise you end up looking like everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's not good. As you know, obviously with like illustration, you kind of have to have something about you that people are like, all right, that that like entices people in. And but it's also what you work on as well. It could be something that you're really good at, like too, and you just focus in that particular area. Like, so outside of books, like I draw a lot of maps. I love drawing maps, and I draw a lot of maps for people, whether it's like festivals or it's could be anything. It could be for like an airline, like where it's in what's it on the magazine that you get on airplanes, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, one of those. So it could be like something like that, and that's what I kind of would focus on, because I know that I'm good at maps and I enjoy doing maps and that kind of thing. So it's really just about having fun and finding what you're good at, and it really is just about experimenting. Though I think people put too much emphasis on getting to the end stage and being this qualified illustrator, and that you have this very clean style that like it's only specific to you. I think a lot of people want to jump to the end to get to that stage, and I don't think it's possible. So that's the bad news for anyone listening who wants to be an illustrator. But the good news is, by the time that you get to like that stage, you kind of already know, and you kind of just listen to yourself then. So I think it's a process, and I think it's different for everybody. But that was my experience though.
And it's interesting you saying, like, you know, there's still stuff that you don't like about your own work, and you know, we as a viewer, or you know, someone looking on Instagram, we'd never see that, but there's always going to be stuff that you know, like, oh, if I had more time, or you know, I didn't have a deadline or something, I could have done more. But we never see your work like that, because we just like think it's amazing from the off. So it's really interesting to hear that you're, you know, you might not ever be happy with it, but it's still out in the world. And it's interesting you saying about like the colors as well, because I love the color palette that you used for Frankie's World, the orange and blue. It's so different, but it just totally works. And also, I'm looking at you on video right now, and you've got a blue background.
Oh my gosh,
top, and I'm like,
brand colors.
Yeah, I'm like, she's on brand.
It was it wasn't a coincidence. That's the word, yeah. I did buy this around the time though that my book came out. I'm not gonna lie, and my hair was blue, so it kind of was a conscious decision when I was buying, but not for the talk today. But it was like, no, that's true though as well. Like it's like Instagram as a whole though, isn't it? We see like the best of everyone, and it's the same in illustration. You see people's best work. Like, I'm not gonna put up my worst work on Instagram. Are you crazy? Like, there's some shite jobs I do, and it's not that they're shite. It's more that it's more a sense that I'll be working with other people, and we'll be working as a team, and I'm waiting to get stuff from them. And sometimes I'm not understanding what's going on between them and the actual client, because it's moving so fast. And sometimes, Jesus, like sometimes even like scams go through as final things, and I'm like, I did not know that was the final thing. Nobody told me. Well, I won't be posting up about that. And these are big clients that I'll be working with sometimes. Like, it'd be, you know, a big client that I want on my portfolio that I can't put on now, because I'm like, oh, that's crap. Like, you know, that way. So that could be frustrating too. But I think that, that's a side that you don't really hear people talking about. You're right, because but yeah, that's very true. I only post up kind of, you know, stuff that I'm happy with, and stuff that I enjoy now, because I remember a time when I was only posting for social media, and I was only drawn for social media, and for it to get likes and stuff like that. And I fell into that rabbit hole of, you know, I'm just posting up like, you know, I'm going to try and build my page up here and try to get as many in as possible, this kind of thing. And you run yourself into the ground doing that, because one, it's definitely one way to do it. But like the thing about that is that your stuff kind of just doesn't have the quality that you want of it, because you're working it so fast and it's going out so fast. And anyone else who's been in the same situation, like, see the way I'm saying that I'm in this situation, I can see other people with that struggle now who are kind of like, I can see it happening like to them. And it really is like, you have to go through that stage, I think, as well, like without kind of like, you don't even know you're going through it. And then you're like, okay, I'm like, who am I doing this work for? Is it actually like for me, or is it for everybody else? It's okay if it's for everybody else, that's fine. But like, do I really need to be doing an illustration, like 2 illustrations a day, 1 illustration a day to post on social media? Like, the quality isn't going to be great if you're doing that either, like, you know, unless it's something like, you know, it's type and it's really simple and you're used to doing it like that all the time, then that could be different. But I found the quality of my work at the beginning of my Your One Nikita stuff, I was posting them constantly. But after a while, you know, the quality does start to kind of go a bit as well, because you are focused on the wrong thing, essentially, at the end of the day. So that's another interesting one that I haven't heard anyone talking about that either. I think it's so easy to get caught up in that kind of rat race and to try and become viral, I think. And it's easy for me to say that, because my stuff did go viral, and I know that's what so many people want to happen with their work. But I think it's just, take it easy on yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to make your work, like, you know, go viral, because I think it's always the times when you least expect it that it will actually happen. I think that's kind of, and always make sure that you're doing something that you enjoy doing as well, like, and it's not kind of you're just doing something that you think everyone else will like. I think that's kind of something that as an illustrator, I think that's something that a lot of people probably experience at the start as well. It's kind of, you have that kind of you want to get your stuff out there, but at the same time, take the time to do it. There's no rush. And that's what I would have liked someone to say to me at the start. I think there's no rush. You're grand. Take time to actually, that way. And I think, a lot of people don't talk about it that much, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's tricky as well, because like you almost, like being an illustrator online, you don't want people to forget you exist. Like if you don't post for a week or two, you just have that like fear that like you might just kind of fade into the background, but it's not the case. Like as soon as you post again, people engage, kind of thing.
Oh, don't get me wrong, like I totally have that same fear. Like see, everyone has these same fears, but nobody really talks about them because people want to be perceived a certain way, and I'd be the same. I'd be like it's kind of like you feel like you have to keep posting so people can see what's going on and stay relevant, and for it to stay in people's feeds. Totally agree. And from working on Frankie's World, I wasn't posting up much at all, and I was actually losing followers, and that was kind of like a really horrible feeling I had as well, because I was like, should I be doing more? But I think something important to take away from that would be that you kind of have to ask yourself, what is more important? Is my social media more important, or is this one thing that I'm working on that I've worked all my life to do more? You have to take it time by time, and I think put your life before social media in a way. And that's something I never done before. Social media was my life at some stage, because I grew up online. Like I grew up with like video games and on MSN, like that was my life. So I've always so it's kind of hard to divide the two. But I think the only person who's making you feel that way, like people are going to forget about you, is yourself. It's that little voice in your head that's like, oh, you should be posting because people aren't going to remember. That's all it is. I think it took me a long time to figure that one out, because it was just like, go away.
Do you feel like taking a step back from social media did you kind of good in the fact that you could have that kind of like distance from all that like worry?
It at the start, well, I was kind of just worried about it at the start, because I was kind of like, oh, I'm so used to posting up all the time. But then the longer I stayed away from social media, the more I found it hard to go back on and talk on social media. Because the longer I stayed away from social media while I was working, the more time I had to process everything for myself. And I changed as a person. So I feel like going back onto social media now, it's slightly more difficult, because I feel like everything I was doing before, it's not that I would do the same now. Like it's not that I wouldn't do the same now, but it's like certain things, the way I talk about things are completely different. I feel like I've really grown up, like, so that feels odd, because I'm not used to that. I'm used to being able to talk about anything. So I found that difficult kind of coming back. But I'm not like beating myself up the same way I would if a post didn't get a certain amount of likes, and I don't care about that stuff anymore. And that's really refreshing, because I used to always care about that, and it was so much of a stress and worry for me. And now I don't really think about it at all. I'm not thinking like, oh, I have to post up a drawing on Thursday. Kind of, I'm not thinking about that. And the more I've stayed offline, and the more I've focused on the work that I actually want to do, the more good work I'm doing, the better work I'm doing, and for myself, that goes into my portfolio, and that's freeing me up to do the work that I want to do then on social media. So it kind of actually works out better, I think, for me that way.
Well, that's good. It's interesting to hear that that's how you kind of have worked through it. And also, like, I don't know, not relating your likes to like the worth of the piece, kind of thing. Like it's,
oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Sure, look at TikTok, for example. Someone could literally roll an egg down the stairs, and it would have like 6 million views on it, and 12 million likes. Like it means nothing at the end of the day. For like people coming to you, like if you're an influencer, but as an illustrator, I don't think, I know obviously you want people to see your work, but find out a way you can do that someone hasn't done before. So I think that's kind of, for anyone listening, that's a good one, actually.
And how, like, I'd be interested to know, how have you found the kind of like comedy side of things? Like, obviously you've been doing that for a while, and kind of after your diagnosis, do you like, I'd be interested to know in terms of like masking and stuff, do you have to kind of put on an act or a front to be a comedian, or is it just something that comes quite naturally? to you? Because obviously you do so many things.
I think I did. Yeah, I think that I was always kind of that person who would try to make people laugh. And whether I did or not, like it depends on the occasion. Like in school, like definitely didn't make my teachers laugh, but I'd make my class laugh and those kind of things. That was something that I always liked to make people laugh. But I never considered being a comedian only until when I was working in an ad agency and I was actually leaving, and my boss turned around to me and said, "Oh, you should try stand-up comedy. You're wasted in here." And I was like, "Okay."
Really?
And I just said, "Actually, you know what? There's an idea." And I had done something similar before, a couple of years before. I just got up on stage and done something at a party. So I was like, well, I kind of have tried something before. I've been on a stage. I'll give it a go. And it just happened so quick. I'd done an open mic night and I posted about it online going, "Oh, I've signed myself up to this open mic night." And then this like really famous Irish comedian, PJ Gallagher, messaged me and he's like, "Oh, do you want to like open for me on my tour?" And I hadn't even done a gig at the stage. And I was like, "Yes." And then after, I was like, "Why did I do that? Why?
Oh my God.
No." I was like, I was like, "You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You just said you're going to open up for like this guy." Like he was like all over the telly and you don't know what you're doing. Why did you do that? But I did it and I really enjoyed it. And people laughed. And it was shortly after that, probably a week or two, I got an agent. And about a month after that, I was at the Vodafone Comedy Festival. It was terrifying. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I knew what I was doing. Because I felt like at that time, I definitely had to have been masking because there's no way, like because I didn't know what I was doing, and that in a way there was an act in that sense because I was protecting myself, like because I was enjoying doing this thing, but also equally, I was meeting so many people as well, so I had to kind of have a mask on, and it wasn't the most autistic friendly environment to be in, to be quite honest, in certain circumstances. I met some lovely people doing comedy. I haven't went back to it just yet because I'm quite busy at the moment and I'm kind of reassessing what my set would be like because obviously again like pandemic, like my whole set be completely changed now. It was more kind of like deprecating style comedy I had before, and no way would I ever do that again. I just have too much respect for myself now. I know that sounds
interesting. No,
I know
that's
that sounds really
interesting.
silly, like, but it's not that I can't have a laugh at myself. It was just, it's kind of like similar in the way, Dave Chappelle would have been doing comedy and people were laughing at him rather than with him. And I'm not saying that people were laughing at me, but I was definitely putting myself down, and everything I talked about was kind of projections that other people in my family or other people had of me. I built that into my comedy set, and when people were laughing at certain things, they were laughing because I fit the bill of all the things that I said. And it kind of made me, I just kind of thought about it more. I was like, I don't want to put myself down like this. Like, I want to make people laugh for different reasons and not this, like, but like, not that all my set would be like that, but there was definitely parts that I would change, that kind of way. I did have autistic parts in my set where, now they were funny because I wasn't taking the piss out of myself. I was actually taking the piss out of other people and things people would say when they find out that you're autistic. So I'd still do that. That was funny. But I also didn't want to be the autistic comedian either because I didn't want to just talk about autism. So it's kind of like I was so early on in my comedy career that I didn't really fully assess yet what my style was, or it was kind of like very similar to what we were talking about in illustration. I was only at the start of I still am, like, so I'm kind of still learning, but I haven't went back now, and at the same time I don't know how it's going to pay out now in the next year or two, or if I will, because it has been so long, so it'd be quite tough for me to get back on stage, I think, after being off stage for so long. It'd be quite nerve-wracking, and I don't think I want to do that now while I'm in the middle of like loads of other work, because I just don't need that stress. And that's how I feel right now at the moment, because it does be too much to do, and I'll be writing all the time, so I'm taking a little break at the moment. I haven't told anyone because nobody's actually asked me, and so I was kind of like, okay, but this is nice, I'm just gonna lead into the distance a bit here, like, and just kind of like they say in all them rap songs, making moves in the background. Nobody knows what I'm doing, but I'm making my moves, I'm doing my own things, like, so it's I think, it happened so fast. Didn't have time to assess any of it. My dad died pretty much the year I started comedy, so I think I needed the break as well. So, but it's a funny one. I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it next, but I think if I'm going back, it's going to be a whole new set, whole new kind of like look, feel, everything, whole new person. So it has to be. So I think that's why I haven't went back. It's just the pressure of that. I'm kind of going, I'm reimagining myself now. So I'm not going to be the Aoife Dooley who was on stage 3 years ago. This is a different Aoife Dooley, like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's it's a funny one. But I think, I need time with that one to kind of before I go back. Yeah.
Wow, that's really fascinating to, like, I didn't realize how quickly you'd gone from kind of, signing up to something to like saying yes to something quite big. Like,
it was literally over the space of 2 months.
Wow.
That all happened. And just it was really strange. It was very fast. And I don't mind stuff like that, but when I don't know what's coming next, that can be quite stressful. So that's why, I think I'll hold off for a bit, and I'll see where I'm at and where I'm going, because as I said, I have no idea. It's going to be a completely different thing. But that's how I got into comedy, though. It was kind of, it was very fast and random.
No, that's interesting to hear. And just the fact that you challenged yourself, and it was obviously something you wanted to try, like, why not try it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the kind of thing that I was thinking when I was going in to do it. It's like, well, if I'm going to be crap, like, I'm going to be crap. Like, I don't have to do it again. It's not really that big a deal. Like, and I think a lot of people put too much kind of nerves on that, like, for going up, like, and that's why people never try stuff like that. And it's the same reason why people don't draw. They're like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not good at that. It's like, but have you ever tried? Have you actually ever tried? Because that's how you do become good at things like that as well. So I do like trying new things, but I think that one was so out of my comfort zone, because I'd never done it really on stage before, other than giving talks and stuff like that. So that was a real big jump for me. That was something completely different, and it paid off at the time, I think, like, that way. So that was great.
And I always like to ask, like, my guests, like, what do you do outside of this, outside of your everyday? Like, do you have any special interests or hobbies, or like, what do you do in your downtime? Or are you someone that likes to kind of draw in your downtime? Are you like, how separate is work and play?
I am definitely one of those people who will draw in my free time, but I'm very conscious of it, because I know that I'll need a break as well, because it is my job too. And as much as I love it, there are times where I just need to tell myself no. But I do that a lot. And I love playing games. I love I got this new Pokemon game, Pokemon Legends Arceus, on the Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing that. I love Pokemon. I'm obsessed with Pokemon. That's like my favorite thing. Yeah, so I love playing on the Switch. Other than that, my best friend is my next door neighbor. She lives in the apartment above. We live in an apartment with 4 other people, so that's really fun. So
Cool.
if I'm taking a break from work, we'll pop up and have like a cup of tea or coffee and stuff like that. So that's nice. But I live a very basic life though outside of that. Like, I don't have this wild lifestyle or anything. I like kind of just that solitude of just kind of reading, or I'm writing, or it could be that I'm coming up with ideas, and sometimes that's when my work would bleed into like my free time, because I do enjoy those things in my free time too. But games though, I love games. And Super Mario. They are my main things now. But because I feel like if I lived in the UK, I probably would do more. You've got it all over there. Park, Alton Towers. We've literally got a theme park named after our like Irish crisps over here, like Tato. And the roller coaster's made out of wood. Like the biggest one. Like, it's like, I feel like that's why I kind of, at the same time, I'm kind of like, there's not really much to do over here unless you want to spend a lot of money. So I try to do a lot of stuff at home, and I get more out of it though, I think, that way as well. Geez, I sound like I don't go out. I don't ever. But no, I swear to God, I literally, yeah, no, I do go out. But I just, I think that's just, yeah. I have a very kind of, I'm not a high maintenance kind of person. I like the simple things in life.
Yeah.
So just the little things. But yeah, I'm a very, very boring person outside this, unfortunately. For anyone who thought that I might be excited, I'm a very boring person.
It's interesting what you're saying about, like, you know, if you lived in the UK, you might do more, but I feel like I'm here and I'm like, I don't do that much.
My auntie's from Bournemouth, and I thought that was really, she lives in a place called Christchurch. I thought that was a lovely area. That was really nice. But the thing that fascinates me the most about the UK is your supermarkets are fantastic. I don't think you realise how lucky you have it. Like, honestly, like I walked into an Asda, a Sainsbury's, a Waitrose, and just the sheer size of the place. It's like you're in America. It's not like that over here. We have very little that would be like that. And like those 3 supermarkets that I've just mentioned there, we don't have them in Dublin. And it's unfortunate because they're great. Half the things that I'd get over with my cousin if we're making a meal or something like that, you can't get them over here. And it's that can be frustrating because I really like food. That's another thing I like. So I think that's, yeah, I love the supermarkets, which is a really odd thing to say, but I think that's a really autistic thing to say at the same time as well. I really love your supermarkets. I just love how they're laid out. They're just amazing. And I think, I don't know, I just feel like there's just so much more to do and explore, but maybe it's just because I'm bored of Dublin city centre because I've seen it all. It's definitely one of those, it wouldn't be like London now where you can just, you know, you can walk around probably Dublin in a day in the city centre, I'd say, but like, yeah, London maybe not. So that's probably why it is bigger.
Yeah, I guess, like, have you always lived there? Okay, so
yeah, that's another part as well. Yeah, I feel like I haven't always lived in the city centre, but I've always lived in Dublin, so that's another thing as well. I think it's time for a change though. Maybe more supermarkets. I don't know. I've always talked about moving now. I'd love to move, but I think it's the idea of moving and getting all your things in a plane. I don't know. I don't really know how to go about that. So I'd be I just feel like it seems like it'd be like a really good idea. And then at the time I'd be like, why am I doing this? So something like think about more. It's like, remember, Aoife, you'd done it for the supermarkets.
The supermarkets, that's the main thing.
Oh, gas. I never forget going to visit my dad for the first time in Mansfield. And we went to this giant Tesco, and the drinks aisle was about like, it was about like 4 or 5 aisles. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe like the things, like it was mad.
It's weird how normal that is to me.
That's what I mean. It's so normal to you guys, but like it's so different to like anyone over here going over. It's literally like you walk into the shop and you don't want people to see it, but like you're kind of like with your mouth open going, this is shopping? Like literally that's what you're like. Well, that's what I was like. But yeah, no, it's yeah, and the theme parks obviously as well. I'd love to be close to the theme parks because I like me and I'll roller coaster, and I feel like if I was I'd have an annual pass beside one if I lived close to one. Absolutely. So yeah, I think it'd be a good way of releasing stress as well when you have like a really annoying client to just go on to one of the roller coasters and you can scream, let it all out. So I just feel like that'd be great. Can't really do that in the middle of Dublin City because
maybe not. You might get some
probably get taken away or something. Just probably wouldn't be the best. Yeah.
I can't believe we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. I've just looked.
Have we? I can because I don't ever shut up. I'm so sorry. I hope I haven't.
No. It's been lovely. I feel like I should like throw it back to you, and you should tell the listeners like where people can find you online and where people can follow you, and your website and things like that. I'll pop them in the show notes as well.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, you can follow me anywhere. I'm on Instagram and Twitter under Aoife_Dooley. And my name is spelled Aoife for anyone wondering, because I know it's such a weird name. It's strange.
It's a lovely name.
It's a nice name, but everyone in Ireland has it. So it's nice when you go outside of Ireland. But then also equally nobody knows how to say it. So it's kind of like, is it? But yeah. Twitter and Instagram, that is Aoife_Dooley. And then on TikTok I'm Dooley Doodles, but I'm only getting up on TikTok now, and I'm only starting out, so I haven't got much on there, but they're the main places you can find me. I'm just trying to think if I'm forgetting anywhere. I am on Facebook too, but I think Twitter and Instagram are the places that I'm most active.
Okay, cool. And I'll pop your website as well, because that's got
Oh yeah, that's a
your
good one. Yeah,
nice portfolio, and
yeah,
you have
that
like
would
a
be great.
shop as well. Your shop's really
Oh
lovely.
yeah, my shop. I can mention that as well. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an online shop. I'm actually looking to update some of the products soon, so I will be doing some more merchandise, and we're actually going to be doing it ourselves, which is really fun. So it's not going to be like outsourced this time. It's going to be we're going to be
Okay.
making the stuff, so that's going to be cool. And that shop is called Only Massive, and the website's onlymassive.com.
I love your
And mugs and stuff, t-shirts, and yeah.
yeah, I love your but you don't look autistic jumper.
Oh
I was
yeah,
having a
yeah,
look at
yeah.
that. I was like, that is excellent.
Yeah, it's I bought not that one, but I got another one of the quality of the long sleeve t-shirt, and it's so soft, so nice. So we're gonna get our own one spot in, and we're gonna start making our own kind of stuff. I definitely
Cool.
want to do more like autistic things as well, because yeah, I felt like what we were talking about earlier on with like the jigsaw puzzle and all. I think we should all just come together and just make our own stuff and just like
Yeah.
wipe that stuff out. Like honestly.
Cool. Amazing. I will make sure to put those all in the show notes so people can have a click on them. But thank you so much for giving up some of your time to chat to me. It's been really fun and it's got so quick.
I know, it flew in. No, thanks for asking me, and so sorry it took so long. I literally have been all over the place the last couple of weeks,
No.
now with COVID and everything, and I was
No.
really looking forward to it. So delighted that we actually finally got to do it now.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thanks so much.